Welcome to the Ask for Skinny podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Michelle Niemeyer, speaker, consultant, and coach on maximizing productivity and eliminating burnout. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Peter. It's nice to meet you.
I'm so excited because all that we talked about before the show. Michelle, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Well, I was a lawyer for 33 years. I finally walked away from that profession a year ago, but the things I'm going to talk to you about happened a lot earlier than that. About 20 years into my career, I got extremely burned out. And at that point, I didn't really know what was wrong. I just felt like I couldn't feel the happiness and the joy and the productivity anymore. I felt like what I was doing was a waste of time. I withdrew from my friends, from my really as much as I could from my practice. I didn't commit malpractice or not do what I had to do, but I was really just going through the motions. And I wasn't excelling. I wasn't feeling really the joy and the victories. And so I, at that point, like I said, I really didn't know what was wrong. I just knew that I thought I was kind of depressed. I was just not feeling good. And I started exercising a little more. I ate a little better. That helped a little bit, right? And it kind of got me out of that trough. But a couple years later, I ended up with an autoimmune disease diagnosis, which triggered my getting a lot of education on nutritional health coaching so that I could learn how to treat myself. Because in the standard medical treatment of autoimmunity, you're basically told there's no cure for what's wrong with you. If the drug works, you can expect to have a normal lifespan, but it doesn't work for 40% of the people. And if it doesn't work, you're looking at a transplant 10 years from now, is what my understanding was at the time. So I saw that as a life-threatening situation. It was obviously very serious. And I did as much as I could to learn about holistic treatment of autoimmunity. And that caused me to do things that later I realized had a huge impact and a very beneficial impact on not just my health, but on how I was feeling otherwise, on getting that joy back and feeling all of a sudden I woke up and I'm not going to say it was like one day I woke up and the birds were singing and the sun was shining, but it kind of was like that, where one day I was like, wow, I like what I do again. I'm really into it. And you know, I'm caring about excelling at what I'm doing. I'm not just going through the motions. And I'm able to work in flow state for much longer periods of time again and stay focused. And I am, liking just enjoying life again. So when that happened, there was at the time, around the time I had my diagnosis, there was a really very serious crisis was happening in the legal profession in the United States. The American Bar Association in 2016 did a study. They found lawyers have very high rates of depression, higher than normal rates of suicide, higher than normal rates of anxiety, all kinds of things like that. And so I decided at that point to do a continuing education course for lawyers to help them find what I had found, which I called Lawyers Thrive and Be Alive. And I found through that there were a lot of people who hadn't ever been exposed to this stuff. And so, over time, I wound out my law practice, and I've now created a business where it's to a broader audience than just lawyers. But what I'm doing is teaching people about how to approach their life so that they can excel at what they do, reach goals that they have, or do the things that they feel are important. And most importantly, be really clear on those things that light them up and make them happy so that they can grab onto those, what I call sparks in their everyday life. And so that they can find ways to structure what they do so that they get tons of work done but they don't have to do all of it. And they're doing it in the context of a team. They're doing it in a way that makes them happy and fulfills them.
Amazing. I would like to have more insights in how you do it, especially when you said that you have now a program that people do not just live, but they basically thrive. And we discussed that beforehand about societal induced goals. And I would like your view, I would like you to present your point of view on how many people that you work with or that they start working with you have uh, no idea what their goals are. All their goals are societal induced. What's your
Well,
take?
that happens. And so one of the procedures that I go through, and this is sort of what I call ninja level work. We go through some basic stuff first. We go through something I call a busyness detox, which is where they get that clarity. They get introduced to healthy, as I'm sure you do a lot of this, healthy lifestyle, getting enough sleep, eating the right kinds of foods, moving their bodies, things, basic general health that supports your ability to maintain mental focus, to have physical strength to get through the day. And then we look at ways to deal with some time management issues, both external and internal. We look at mindset, and we figure out how to create habit loops that will support getting the most done for you based on what your life is like, and what do you need to do. So that's the basic stuff. The top level of what I work with people on does have to do with goal setting. And I have people take 3 major goals, and usually it's a personal goal, a business goal, and then one of those, depending on what matters more to the person. And we dissect those goals in great detail. We look at what are their strengths in the goal, what are they, and I call this a SWORD analysis. So it's an acronym. The S is strengths. The strengths are things like you already have something that you need, or you already have the education, or you already have the money, or you already have a team that might be able to help you. The weaknesses would be, what are the gaps between where you are today and achieving whatever it is you want to achieve? And that could be anything. Some people come to me, they think they need to get a graduate degree, and they've been going to night school. Some of them, it's that they've wanted to lose weight for half their life and they haven't done it yet. Some of them, it's that they want to get married, or they want to have children, or they have a goal of retiring at a certain age or something like that. Whatever the goal is, we look at what's the gap, what are the weaknesses. Then we look at what are the opportunities that if you achieve this goal, what doors does that open to you? So whatever that might be, maybe you want to reach a higher level, a higher compensated level in your company, and that would make it possible to buy a bigger house, or to send your children to a good college, or to pay for certain things. Whatever that is for you, and it's very individualized for people. And then we look at what are the risks of doing that? What are you giving up? You're always giving something up when you're spending your time and your money on something, right? You might lose time with your family. You might lose the money you wanted to spend on one thing to spend it on the other. And after we go through that deep dive, I will say to the person, now, 0 to 10, tell me right away the first number that comes to your mind. How much do you want it? And I don't give them time to think about it. I don't give them time to have that defense come up. I just, right then, tell me how much you want it. And you'd be shocked how many people then say to me, oh, I don't know, maybe a 6. It's usually not a 5 or lower, because keep in mind, these are people's it's their biggest 3 to 5 year goals is what they've come to me with. Nobody wants to admit that that it's less than a 5. So generally it's like, some people will say a 5 or 6, but what I generally tell people is, if it's not an 8 or above, why are you wasting your time and money on this? What's important about this to you that you're even calling this a big goal if it's only a 6. And invariably, it's because in their family, they were expected to have a graduate degree. So therefore, even though they have a very successful business, they're making more money than their dad ever dreamed of making, they have a successful family life, everything's great, they still think they have to go to night school to get a graduate degree because that's something that they, for whatever reason, they believe that they're not successful until they have that. Or maybe they're not somebody who really cares about being married, right? But they've been taught they have to be married. So therefore they feel bad not being married and they think that that's something they have to pursue. Whatever it is for you, I see that a lot. I see a lot of people dropping at least one of those 3 goals. And that opens up with no other work. It opens up not just time and resources, but mental bandwidth. And it frees people to stop beating themselves up because they haven't achieved something that was never really what they wanted.
Mm-hmm. I would like to jump back to the time and scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
You explain how time and scheduling is important. Most of the people that I meet are in complete delusion because they use so many apps and scheduling things. They believe that they're good at scheduling things. But is uh, if we say that it comes down to prioritizing, is that our simplification, or is that the core of why most people are not scheduling their time efficiently?
I think some people spend so much time scheduling, they're not spending time doing, and they're not spending time thinking. And when I say scheduling, when I teach people about time management, I actually don't teach them anything about scheduling. Because in my opinion, it's important to have focus. It's important to know what you need to do, but it's also important to allow for natural interactions to happen. You and I spent quite a lot of time talking before we started this podcast session. And we have time scheduled for an hour and we're already past that. But we had such a great conversation that was really important, I think, to both of us,
Yep.
that I would never say, oh, you know what, it's important to stick to my schedule. So we're 2 minutes over right now and we're going to have to stop right now because no, I'm not going to do that, right? And I do see people that are so scheduled that they don't have time to literally even think about the next thing. They just are literally, I ran for a political office once in 2011, and I referred to my time in that era of my life, which I think directly contributed to my burnout phase. It had happened right beforehand. I referred to myself as being like a wind up toy. Because basically I had people with me. I had time that I had to make calls. I had time that we had meetings with people. I had time that I went to events. Everything I did was scheduled, and I literally felt like I wasn't even, I was existing in the confines of my schedule, right? I was just going from one thing to another, to another, to another. And then I woke up and repeated and did the things the schedule said to do. And I completely lost touch with myself during that time frame.
Mm.
I was so on all the time and I was so regimented in doing what I had to do that I didn't give myself any time to just relax or to think or to be creative or to be alone. And that's problematic. So, the one thing I will say about scheduling that can be helpful is to make an effort to, frankly, schedule little but important things, including the things you need to take care of yourself. Whether that's taking a walk, whether that's, I don't do anything on my schedule before 10 in the morning, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much ever, because for me, my day is great if I can start my day in a relaxed way. I have a cup of coffee. I walk my dog along the water. I live in downtown Miami, Florida. I have beautiful parks and waterfront here. And I go for a walk and I relax and I get myself in a state that's really good to be able to do things I need to do in my day. But I try really not, like, there are times where there's no way around it, but 99.9% of the time, I guard that pre 10 a.m. time with my life. Because for me, that's a really important moment of every day where I just get started in a good way.
That got me thinking, how important is having the right vibe when working with your clients? Because for me, it's all about being in the right vibe. Also, for this podcast, if I wouldn't be feeling very well, that would make a miserable podcast for you and for the listeners.
Oh,
But
for sure.
if
And
I'm
and
okay, then things just flow. And also the clients, they're happy because I'm happy. If I'm healthy, they see this vibe, and it's easier for them to be healthy. So one of the first things that I had to do when developing my wellness program is to get fit.
yeah,
You don't want
and
someone that is overweight explaining you what you need to eat, how you do it. And it was just all about me. I know that um, often things become, or I think, am I too self-observed or, you know, narcissistic, as they call it right now. But if I'm not in a good mood, and everything flows for me, it's it's so much harder for others to do it. But if I'm in a flow, everyone flows with me. What's your
absolutely.
take on that?
I agree with that. And I think we have, this is very woo-woo. Some of the more businessy types and intellectuals might not agree with this, but I am absolutely a believer in this. I really do believe we put out energy into the world and we attract and connect with energy, and we do have the ability to help people elevate where they are if we're at a higher level of energy and we feel good and we're happy. And I also think that we have the ability to consciously give ourselves that. And part of it is, frankly, who we surround ourselves with. If you have that level of energy and you're feeling good and you're creating a vibe around you, that aura, that vibe that you're creating, you can, in a lot of ways, create that in yourself. You can do it by what the food you're putting in your body. You can do it with the news you're watching. You can do it with the what you're looking for.
Mhm.
There's the reticular activating system, which is a part of your brain which literally looks for the things that that you want to look for. But if you're conditioned to look for the negative, you'll look for the negative.
So I agree
And if you're
completely.
conditioned to look for the positive and to find the better route, so to speak, in a challenge, and not just quit. You don't see it as a wall. You look for the way around it, or you look for the way over it, or under it, or whatever. You're going to have a different mindset than somebody who sees the wall and goes, "Oh, I can't go any farther. The road is over, and there's a wall in front of it." Right? And so those things all add together to allow you to expand, to see more, to be more, to do more. And in what I teach people, to find those things that light you up, you can see those things and you can proactively make sure that you have them in your life, and you can find ways to get the things done that maybe you're not as interested in doing or you keep putting off, to find help in that and to do it differently so that you can really thrive.
Amazing. And all that comes just from managing time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and prioritizing by living through a lens of clarity about who you are and what you want and what makes you happy and light up, and then bringing that into the world. And it's not selfish if you come home to your family as a joyful, happy person who makes your family feel good, right? And who has the ability to focus and connect versus being the person who comes home depleted and sits down on the couch, opens a beer, and looks at the TV and doesn't talk to them, right?
Yeah, agree. So one more thing that I often address in my goal setting. A lot of people set or when they come to me, they talk about their money or revenue goals. And I said, okay, that there's no limit to that basically. But what are the trade-offs? I would like to know what is your take? How important are money goals in the whole constellation of the goals and societal induced goals and our own goals? How important is to plan or to have goals for our income or assets? How important is money in this whole, uh, let's say, constellation of goals?
In my opinion, money is a tool,
Mhm.
period. And to some degree, it may be a reflection of energy and effectiveness. Um, can you have a money goal that if you're in a certain, it depends on what you do professionally. If your money goal is tied closely to what you make, if you're an employee in a company and your raises are based on performance, then maybe your better performance is going to give you more money. So having that money goal is helpful. Having your own business, obviously, a lot of times when you think bigger and you reach broader, you'll make more money if you're providing good service and making people feel like you're giving them value. But in the end, I think, a goal to be happy, a goal I don't know anyone who's truly happy who ties their happiness to their money.
Mhm.
It doesn't work because in the end, you're just sitting there with your money. Right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, there may be a sense of accomplishment because it could have a sense of competition for you, that you've made X dollars and that was sort of your competitive goal. And that makes you feel good. It makes you feel successful because you've achieved your competitive goal. But in the end, it's not about the money, it's about the competition, right? Or it's about the giving of yourself and doing something that reached a certain level and that made you feel successful. It's rarely about the money itself.
okay, Michelle, before we conclude, I would like to ask you two more things.
Okay.
What would you like our listeners and our viewers to take from this episode? What is the most important thing that they should look into it if they didn't work on that already?
Okay. If they haven't done anything else, for them to take a moment, really reflect on what it is that lights them up and makes them happy. That to me is crucial. It's so important for people to do that. And a lot of times we go years without doing that. We get into a rut. We do the things that we're doing over and over. We follow the plan that we've had since we were 16 years old. And then one day we wake up and we go, oh, is this it? Right? And if we can take stock of what those things are that really just give us joy, and a lot of times it's little things. It's not necessary. It's moving our body. It's having conversations where we're connecting with other people. It's seeing beautiful artwork or making something and seeing it finished, even if it's doing yard work at your house, right? It doesn't have to be big, fancy, expensive things. It could be things that are very everyday. But when you get those in your life, they fuel you. And when you've got that fuel, you don't get burned out and you feel better. And then you can go forth with that vibe we're talking about instead of feeling like everything we're doing is depleting us.
Thank you. And now going towards the last question. Where can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you? Where can they see more about you and what you do?
I would look for, since you're in Europe, and I don't know what percentage of your viewers are American,
98%.
US American.
Yeah, 98.
I hate the word American. I can tell you my political leanings right there just by telling you that Americans calling themselves American is kind of crazy because we're like what, a third of quote unquote America. But what I would say is first, if you're in the US, you can text the word clarity to 33777. That won't work outside the US.
Mhm.
If you're outside the US, you're going to have a link in your show notes for me, I
Okay.
believe.
Yep.
And that link is going to bring you to a community page. The community page will give you tools. And among those tools, there is a clarity exercise, which is a guided meditation and journaling prompts to help you with that clarity of finding those sparks. There's also a form to do the SWOT analysis on your goals. So if you get into that community, it's free. You can do those tools and get that clarity right away.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for all the insights and thank you for being my guest tonight.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's been a pleasure.